Hi, and welcome to the Passionpreneur series. I am your host, Brandy, and I am so excited for today's episode. I have Park Howell here, and he is the master of storytelling. And I got to tell you, I have been in marketing for years, longer than I care to actually say on screen right now. But it wasn't until this past year that I really got into and started to understand the value of storytelling. And in my own business, it has transformed my communication. And I'm so excited to have Park here so that he can talk more about it and what it can do for you. So Park, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandy.
As you know, a lot of our viewers, our guests here, they are just getting started. You know, they're still pretty new in their business. And so, you know, the idea of storytelling may not even be something they're aware of. But like I said, I know the value of it. And in times like this, when we have the opportunity to learn, to craft our message even better, and really grow our business, it's so key. So I would love to welcome you and, you know, give us a little background on who you are and why should we listen to you?
You know, I've heard that question a lot, starting when I was a little kid. Now, why should I listen to you? I don't know. I've been doing this a long time. I think a lot longer than you have. And I'm proud to say I've been in the branding marketing world for about 35 years. It's what I did coming right out of college. I started in the advertising game and worked for a few agencies my first 10 years. And then I started my own ad agency in Phoenix here called Park & Company and ran that for 20 years. And Brandy, I just found in 2006 that the old way of branding and marketing, advertising simply wasn't working. Mass media didn't carry the punch it had before because the masses were becoming the media back then and are fully entrenched now, you know, in 2020. And everything had to appreciably change that I found working with our clients. And it took me a while, but I did a lot of research. I mean, a lot of research. And I found that you can put the creative campaigns to the side and the flamboyant posters and that sort of thing. They just don't have the impact they used to have. What people crave now are stories. And what I mean by stories are those little scenes, those moments that I call success scenes in our customers' lives, in our employees' lives, in the customers we sell to's lives. These little moments in time that demonstrate the absolute impact you and your product offering or service have to level them up in their lives. It doesn't take a fabulously creative campaign to do that. It just needs a novel, interesting way to tell that story. And that's what I do today. I pivoted away from my agency back in 2016, and I solely consult, teach, coach, and speak on the power of stories, specifically to help leaders of purpose-driven brands excel through the stories they tell.
I love that. So my first question would be, how is this different than just sharing a testimonial?
Well, great question, Brandy. And here's the main thing. Most testimonials are totally brand focused. They're trying to beat their chest and say, let me show you how great our company is and what we solved and all this sort of thing. Stories to me, and I like to go from case studies to calling them case stories because it makes you put your audience first and foremost. Your audience is always the center of the story. They're the hero. They're the protagonist on a journey. And so you are going to tell this case story about someone that you have helped, but you as the brand play a secondary, and some will even argue a more important role in that story. You play the role of mentor or guide. And if you think about it, Brandy, any great story where you're pulling for that hero to achieve something, they always have help. There's always a sidekick. Glenda, Good Witch of the North, helped Dorothy actually return home. You know, Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Yes.
and Yoda, they help Luke get everything he wants in his life. Your position, your role as the brand in brand storytelling is that mentor or guide, always placing your audience first.
That's awesome. So what are some of the tools that you would you give your clients, or you would teach for someone just getting started with this whole idea?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I first started learning about this, I was fortunate. Our middle child, our son Parker, was going to film school at Chapman University in Orange, California, a fabulous film program. And he has been in Hollywood ever since, directing and working in primarily now virtual reality world. But while he was there, I was trying to figure out, how do we need to communicate differently in this changing world? And again, remember, I had mentioned that I saw the paradigm shift in 2006, and he was going to school between 2006, graduating 2010. So I went along for the ride with him. I said, hey man, since we're paying for your books, send them to me when you're done with them, because I want to know, what does Hollywood teach you that someone in my world, in advertising, marketing, sales, should know on how to attract an audience and engage them and move them to action. So one of the very first things I learned was the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell, this big template to storytelling,
Right.
which can be really fabulously confusing and involved. But I boiled it down to the system called the story cycle system. I took his 12-step framework, mapped it to business in 10 steps, and I started using that. And I use it primarily for brand story creation, and it worked beyond my wildest imagination. Some of our brands, some of the people we worked with, where they really focus on their brand narrative like a screenwriter might, or like an author would, versus just a business person, they've grown by 400 and even 600%, precisely because they got their story dialed in that everyone could buy into. Now,
That's amazing.
since that, I've learned that because that takes a while, it was developed for brand story crafting. I found that what a lot of people need are just the elements, the rudiments of brand storytelling, so that they can go out and have an immediate impact in small and medium-sized ways. So I have two other templates, one called the and button, Therefor, which is a very foundational framework to help you dial in your focus. And it uses the 3-act structure of setup, problem, resolution, and, but, therefore. For instance, let me give you for instance on that.
I love this.
I've been in the advertising, branding, marketing world for 35 years and have helped a lot of businesses grow through the influence of mass media. That's Act 1, setting the stage. But technology totally leveled the playing field, and now the masses are the media, creating a cacophony of communication that we all compete in. That's Act 2. That's the problem. Therefore, I now consult, teach, coach, and speak on the primal power of story to hack through the noise and hook the hearts of your audiences. That's the and button, therefore, in a nutshell. I can even say that simpler and quicker, but it's
Oh my
a
gosh.
3-act structure to help you get really dialed in. So I always like to start teaching that first with brands to help them, because you can use that in all your communication.
That just blew my mind. I can't tell you how many books I've been reading in the past few months about storytelling, and that was that was so simply put as a great way to get started.
Well, I learned that from a really fascinating guy, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Randy Olson. He is a Harvard PhD evolutionary biologist that went on to film school at USC, graduated, produced 3 documentaries on climate change and global warming, but probably his most important work are the 4 books that he's written to help scientists use story and narrative frameworks to communicate their big ideas. It was his 3rd book called Connection. That was his 2nd book called Connection that I read about 6 years ago. And he was the one that introduced me to this and, but, and therefore framework as he was using it in science. And I, from a branding standpoint, immediately saw its power to help fine-tune the core truth and talk about and articulate the core truth of a brand using this very simple and, but, and therefore framework. And then you build off of that. That's your foundation that you then build the rest of your storytelling on.
Wow. Okay. So is this also something, look, step back a bit.
All right.
So thinking about social media, right? More people are online right now. This is a prime opportunity to get your business in front of a lot of eyeballs. Is this also something we should be thinking about in every single post that we do? Or is this something where it's more strategic and, in every other post or one post a week when we're getting ready to launch something or share something on the bigger scale? Like, how do you use this?
So, Brandy, when we communicate, we quite often forget about what's at stake for the audience. Why do we make them care? So I like to use the and button, therefore, to get all of my thinking down. And when I write something or I've got a show intro on my podcast that is falling flat, I'll go back and look at it and go, oh, I got lazy. I defaulted back to blah, 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 blah. So I recommend you use the ABT to get you super focused on what's at stake for your audience, because it's built into it is a problem solution dynamic. And you can use it, Twitter is a great place to use it because you're so limited on the character count there that it makes you get super focused on your messaging.
That's
You
true.
can use it for Instagram. You can use it wherever. You can use it in your email writing. So for instance, here's like a really short ABT that uses 3-act structure. Most executives communicate and care, but bore. Therefore, use the primal narrative framework of the ABT to hack through the noise and hook the hearts of your audiences. So most communicators, we set the stage by identifying our audience, or most executives, and we increase the importance. They communicate and care, but here's the problem. They're boring. Most of us, and we all fall into this, we default back to the old way of doing things, and we get boring. We and our audiences to death. So when you do an ABT, you get one and, set the stage, and increase its importance. But here's the problem with what you're solving for. Therefore, here's how you, as their mentor or guide, provide the solution to help them get what they want. You can use it absolutely everywhere.
I love this. So I know you mentioned your podcast.
Yes, the business of story.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, it's something that I launched 5 years ago. And by the time this show airs, I believe we are going to be at 250 episodes.
Oh my God.
And I'm very proud of the fact that we are ranked among the top 10% of downloaded podcasts in the world. And what I do every week is focus or feature story artists from literally around the world, covering every aspect of story. Anything from story creation to story structure to brand storytelling to negotiations to how and when to use story in nonprofits to raise funds. I mean, in the healthcare industry, I just try to cover it at every angle. And right when I think I'm running out of content, then like 10 more ways to use story pops up. So it's really exciting. And Brandy, I'll tell you what I'm particularly excited about this milestone in show number 250. So in all of those shows, I've only appeared by myself once, and that was in show 200.
Oh my gosh.
So what I'm going to do in this show in 250, I'm about ready to publish in June my new book that I have spent 8 years writing and proofing. I'd write, and then I'd take it out to the world and test it out and rewrite it. It's all about the story cycle system, the 10 steps, filled with all kinds of stories to model what I'm talking about in there and how other brand leaders are using it. And it's called Brand Bewitchery: How to Wield the Story Cycle System to Craft Spellbinding Stories for Your Brand. So what I'm doing on the show is I'm going to read my origin story out of the book as kind of a preview to the book, so people will have a better understanding of how did this all come about? What were Park's highs and lows? How did he learn this? And what is the basic structure of the story cycle system? It's really a fun read that starts with a really freaky clown riding a clown bike in the middle of the cotton fields in Buckeye, Arizona, just to give you an idea of how weird my backstory really is.
So speaking of origin story, is that another big piece that entrepreneurs should be working, like crafting?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, everything starts really with your origin story. Why do you do what you do? So let's work on yours for a second. So Brandy, give me a little bit of background. How long have you been in the advertising, branding, marketing world, what you do?
Oh my goodness. I would say 15 years,
Okay.
But as a legit business, making money, 3.
All right. So let's say you got a 15-year career in this, and now you are doing this for yourself as a legit business. I would say you're legit even without making money. So just go with that. So
Thank you.
take us to a moment in your life. Even though there's probably several of them, I just want one moment in your life that you can look back on. And maybe you were a little girl at this time, or maybe it was in college something happened. But a moment in time that at the time maybe didn't seem quite so significant to you, but now looking back, that moment or that scene in your life has informed who you are today and why you do what you do with your company.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Just one?
The one that popped to mind first.
Okay. Okay, I have it.
Okay. So tell us about it. When did it happen? Let's start there.
Goodness, it was about 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago, where did it happen?
It was here in San Diego, where I live now.
And okay,
And
and you are the central character here, so this happened to you, right? Okay.
mm-hmm.
What happened?
At the time, a good friend of mine, we had a women's networking group. And it was just supposed to be like an opportunity to get female entrepreneurs together and talk, share information, stories, things like that. So it started off being more for like just a place for us all to gather. The big takeaway for me for that was the impact that we actually had. And it was some months later that one person in particular came up and she just told us, you guys have transformed my business. And not in a way that she expected, but just in the fact that we brought this community together. She was networking, she was meeting people that she never thought she'd meet, and was finally getting those tools and information that she needed to really take the leap and make her business real, instead of just a hobby. And for me, that was the first time I realized how it doesn't take a lot to make a big difference. And you may not know it at that moment, but the impact that you have on other people's lives just by showing up.
So that happened 5 years ago. And why now? Why did that cause you to create the company, the brand that you have now?
That ties back to my first company, where I just realized, we as entrepreneurs, we work so hard.
Yeah.
And every day you have to get up and make the commitment to show up in your business, to take that chance. But at the same time, if no one knows that you exist, you don't have a business. And so I really wanted to help those people that were shy, introvert, timid, but had this passion. I wanted to help them get that message out there. And if I could do that by, the tools and the knowledge that I have to help them, I wanted to be able to do that.
And so what is your core offering?
Helping them to,
That's where the story cycle comes in.
Mm.
It's there, believe me or not. It's inside of you. It just hasn't revealed itself yet. It hasn't expressed itself to the world because you're so close to it.
Okay.
But what my point is, you have just shared a small little origin story about you. Now, when people come to hire you, I guarantee they're buying Brandy, not necessarily what you make. They're buying what you make happen in people's lives through you. What you make are simply, the table stakes for being in the game. When you tell a short little origin story, and it can be really simple, use these 5 elements. So I talked about the and, but, and therefore. Now let's expand on that a little bit. And, but, and therefore helps you find your theme. And now you tell a story to illustrate or emphasize the premise that you've made in that and, but, and therefore. So you've given us a timestamp 5 years ago. It connects, it makes our monkey brains go, oh, Brandy's about ready to tell me a story. Something must have happened. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given me a timestamp, a location stamp. Here in San Diego, oh, something happened in San Diego. I better pay attention. Brandy, introduce the character. Here's who I'm stand for. So you could say, look, I'm compassionate, I'm thoughtful, I'm bright, I'm smart, I'm here to help. Those are all nice, but it's just your opinion or your assertions. What you want is your audience to arrive at those attributes on their own. And you do that by telling a true story about the real world impact you make in people's lives, or how the world has impacted you to help inform who you are and what you offer today. So you started with this female entrepreneurs networking group. Going along, there was this woman. Do you remember the woman's name? You don't have to say the whole name, but do you remember her first
Lauren.
name? What's that?
Lauren.
Lauren. So what line of work was Lauren in?
She's a business coach, but she wanted to start a podcast.
Oh, okay. And so, one day you never know the impact you're going to have in someone's life. And there was a woman there by the name of Lauren. And she was a very successful business coach, but she really wanted to start this podcast and probably had some fear in doing that, like so many people do. Well, in that networking, we helped coach her and build her up and whatever. And then she went out and she launched this amazing podcast. And today you can hear it at such and such a place. That had such an impact on me that it is one of the driving forces as to why I launched my company. Because I want to help the Laurens of the world. And you know what? They don't even have to be women entrepreneurs. Although I focus there, I can help men too, but everyone has a core voice, something that they can bring to the world. But we are all afraid to share that. So in my line of work, I help, embolden them to share that voice and then show them ways to help them do that so that they can connect with their audiences, with their peeps, have the impact on the world they want while earning a living doing something they love. That's what I do here.
Mic drop.
It's your origin story.
Oh,
we all have them. I did a TEDx talk a couple of years ago, TEDx Gilbert, and in it was for the 20-somethings in the audience that were, going out on their own or finding their careers or trying to find their voice. So often at that age, we're coming out of college and we're living someone else's story. We're living mom and dad's story. We're living the girlfriend or boyfriend story, or the spouse's story versus who we really are. And in that TEDx, I said, stop looking for your story and start finding your scenes, just like you did. Those moments in your life that have shaped and informed who you are today. Find those stories, knit them together, or those scenes, knit them together, and your story will find you.
That is huge. I wish you could see my notes right now. I have so many quotes from you.
Well,
oh my goodness. That's amazing. And doable. I mean, it just takes some time to sit down and actually think about it. But I mean, that's a whole different way of communicating and getting across to your customer why you exist. Instead of just saying, buy my product, it's going to help you.
Well, think about it, Brandy. We all live in this age of abundance. If you were to pigeonhole yourself, are you a social media marketer? Are you a startup marketer? What would you define yourself as?
Right now, social media strategist.
Okay. So you and 200 million other people are social media strategists. Just like me, I'm in the branding world and there's 200 million of me out there. How do I separate myself? Well, I do it by first really focusing on story, but by golly, everyone's a storyteller anymore. It seems like everyone's just popping up. So I have to focus and define my brand even that much more. And I've taken the bold title of the world's most industrious storyteller. And I say industrious because I use story to build brands and to build businesses and demonstrate true ROI. Because I argue that storytelling is the most powerful yet underutilized skill set asset in business today. And when I teach it and train it, everything is measurable, and I approach it like a business development professional. So that's what starts carving my position in the world as the world's most industrious storyteller. Now, there are storytellers on innovation. There are other brand storytellers. There are leadership storytellers. There are storytellers in all these different categories, but I own the world's most industrious. And I can back it up with my origin story, my backstories, and the proof of the people that I've helped and worked with.
Right.
So now I ask that for you. And it's going to be hard. You probably can't arrive at right here. But so you're a social media strategist, you and everyone else's cousin. What makes you completely different and distinctive than everybody else? And there's something in there. And start with your story, start with your origin stories, and you're going to find that unique position in the marketplace, your unique value proposition that separates you from everybody else.
I love this. Wow. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I have some homework to do tonight. Yes. This is amazing. This is exactly why I wanted to do this series, because you don't know what you don't know, first of all, right? And there's always more you can be doing. And even for someone like myself who's been doing this for a while, I pride myself on knowing how to do this for my clients. There's still so much more to learn.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's hard to do it on yourself. I mean, my dentist, Dr. Vo, wonderful dentist, but he doesn't do his own root canals.
No.
He goes and he has another dentist do his root canals. Well, some might even equate finding your brand stories a little bit like finding a root, doing a root canal. That's a little bit painful sometimes, but it takes a person just to step back and really do some self-introspection, which, by the way, now during this crazy time that we're all going through is a marvelous time to sit back and just like really scan everything and say, what is it that I absolutely stand for? Who am I? What do I want? And what is my purpose in this world? Because once this nonsense finally boils down, we're going to be back to not business as usual, business as incredibly unusual. But
Right.
this disruption in our lives is the ideal time for you and your viewers here to go out and really understand what your brand is and how you are going to come out of this in the world and really own a position in people's minds about what you stand for.
Wow. Okay, so tonight, give us 2 things to do. Where do we start?
Tonight, where do you start? All right, now this is going to be at the risk of totally selling something, but I've got an online course that I started, businessofstory.thinkific.com. The first chapter is absolutely free, and when you do it, you're going to get 2 really valuable things. The first thing is it's going to take you through an exercise that I do all the time with my clients to help you understand what your unique position is in the marketplace. As I mentioned earlier, what you do differently and more distinctively than your competition. And it's a 4-step activity. It's really fun to do because it makes you think. It's easy at the beginning, and then as you get to the bottom in step number 4, where it asks you to declare your position in the marketplace, you're going to probably have to noodle that around and think about it a little bit. Might not become immediately apparent to you, but it will. Just by going through the exercise, you start summoning these forces, these story forces within you to help you identify what is your set. What is it that you do? So that's what you're going to get out of chapter number 1. Also in chapter 1 is I'm going to teach you what I talked about earlier today, the and, but, and therefore narrative framework. You're going to go through it. You'll learn how to do it, and then I'm going to ask you to practice it. And how these 2 worlds come together in that first chapter is once you identify what you do differently and more distinctively in the market than your competition to make you stand out and rise above the noise, then you're going to have to declare that to the world. And you can use this ABT, what I call the 1-floor elevator pitch, because it takes no more time than that to concisely, compellingly, clearly communicate what you do in the world. So go to businessofstory.thinkific.com, and there you can take that first class for absolutely free, and you will be ahead of the game just by doing that.
I'm so glad you actually mentioned the elevator pitch, because I was thinking about that earlier when you started talking about the APT method. Like, how could this actually be used for a 30-second, 45-second pitch as well? Like, this would be such a great foundation for it.
Okay, well, let's practice yours.
Oh my goodness.
So, Brandy, I've been in the communications marketing business for 15 years. And what is your core audience? What is your core audience about? Your core
Female
customer.
entrepreneurs.
I'm sorry?
Female entrepreneurs.
Okay, great. And my focus has been to help empower female entrepreneurs to make the difference in the world they seek.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the biggest problem that they have? Why aren't they doing this without your help?
Confidence. You know, that they're afraid to use their voice, to actually be loud, to say what they stand for.
Okay. But I have found that these women, as brilliant as they are, lack the confidence to be heard. Therefore, what do you offer?
Training, coaching, consulting on how to get their voice and their message out there.
In just social media or in all aspects?
Mainly social media.
Okay, let's say that then. Let's get really super specific. And I love how specific you are with this. The more specific, the better. And here's the challenge with specificity in our minds. It plays a total and utter game with us. I hear this all the time. People say, well, Park, if I get so specific and so focused on this one audience, I'm afraid I'm going to miss out on all this other business. When the exact opposite happens, the more specific and focused you can get, the more business you will attract, believe it or not. So you've got 15 years of experience, and you are for entrepreneurial women to help them make the impact in the world they seek. Mm-hmm. But even regardless of their brilliance, they lack the confidence to be heard. Therefore, as their go-to social media strategist, I will help them plan, activate, measure, and enhance their marketing story online to help them have the impact they seek in the world. Something I'm kind of butchering that last part. But what you've done now is you've played to our limbic caveman, cavewoman, ape brain in a problem solution dynamic by first setting the stage, 15 years experience working with entrepreneurial women, but they don't have confidence. Therefore, I provide that confidence by getting them heard on social media. Now you are getting really much more focused. No longer are you competing with hundreds of thousands of social media strategists.
Right.
Now you're getting down to a few thousand that help women. And what you're going to want to do is even dial that in a little bit more so that you become that one person in the room that does specifically what you do. Nobody offers a story cycle system but me.
Right.
It separates me from every other brand storyteller in the world. And it's proven, growing brands by 400, 600%. So I own that as the world's most industrious storyteller. That's what I want you to do, is to find, and your listeners to do. Find this ABT to help you identify your number one position in the marketplace and how you're going to communicate that. So people go, I'm going to Brandy for this. This is who is the top of the game, and she has my business.
I freaking love this. Gosh, Park, thank you so much for this.
Oh, my pleasure. This is what I do.
And yeah, you no wonder you do it beautifully.
Well, thank you. And I can tell you, I did not invent any of this stuff. It's been around since the beginning of time. I have just done so much research and connected the dots and then mapped it to business, having done decades of brand building and then getting very frustrated at the old way of brand building. I knew I was missing something and there had to be something else. When I started seeking, the universe started delivering,
Yes.
me, Joseph Campbell,
Yes.
Randy Olson, the 5 primal elements of story and all this others. And so the last thing I'd like to leave you and your viewers with is we all are intuitive, innate, instinctual storytellers. It's what makes us uniquely human. It's what separates us from all the other apes out there. We think and we use the forces of story to help build something better for tomorrow. All I want your viewers to do is to move from being an intuitive storyteller to an intentional one. Because what happens when you remain intuitive, you default back to just features and functions and blah, 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 blah. You don't actually use your storytelling technique. When you apply these frameworks, you will become intentional. And you will start hacking through the noise and hooking the hearts of your audiences when you do it.
Gosh, that's so powerful. That's a great spot to end this on. I could seriously talk to you forever.
Well, thank you, Brandy. This has been great.
Thank you. Okay, how can we stay connected to you? How can the audience members find you, connect with you, all that
Come
good
on
stuff?
over to businessofstory.com or shoot me an email, park, P-A-R-K, at businessofstory.com. My podcast is just that. You can get it on iTunes and all the usual places, Business of Story
Perfect.
Podcast. And of course, the Thinkific course is amazing. I have a ton of people going through it right now, and it's so much fun watching their stories come together. businessofstory.thinkific.com, or you can get it through my regular website too.
Perfect. And we'll have a link to all of this in the email that follows today, actually. So they will have access to everything and be able to connect with you and learn how to do this.
And can I share one last little thing with you, Brandy?
Yes, please.
As you are learning how to do this and crafting your own brand story, I want you to remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. You guys, seriously, these are drops of wisdom that we're getting in this series. And I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. Park, thank you so much again. I really appreciate your time, your energy, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the future.
Same here, Brandy. And by all means, let me know how your story comes together.
I will, for sure.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.